All right, guys, welcome back to Overcome Babylon. I'm Abraham Ojeda. We have some big stuff happening right now. Iran has unveiled what they're calling the Khorramshahr 4 iteration of their medium-range ballistic missile, able to reach Israel in 8 minutes. And this is from about 2 weeks ago that they started deploying these in their underground missile cities in Iran. This is a huge development on top of, obviously, the United States and Israel getting ready for another phase of attacks against Iran. And this time they're looking for a decapitation strike. They're looking to overthrow the Ayatollah. They're looking to change the entire landscape of the Middle East with one swift blow to the Iranian regime. But will they succeed? This is something I've been talking about here in Overcome Babylon since 2022. I've been warning about a game-changing, world-changing, history-changing event that is going to happen to Israel that is going to alter the course of human history as we know it. And so this was just reported today. The BBC said, Trump is curious why Iran has not capitulated. And this is according to U.S. envoy Witkoff. More specifically, Trump is wondering why they haven't capitulated in the face of Washington's military buildup in the Middle East, which is super impressive, by the way. You have multiple carrier strike groups, fighter jets, cargo planes. All their military assets are basically now in position to go against Iran. This is something I've been talking about here at Overcome Babylon. Like I said, since 2022, I talked about how we should be seeing a military buildup, a buildup of some sort to protect Israel right before what Jesus referred to as the Great Tribulation happens. And we're so close to this now. Seriously. So if you're here, take a moment to like, subscribe, share this message so people can actually understand what the Bible has proclaimed to us. Because will the United States and Israel be successful in overthrowing the Iranian regime? The Bible is saying absolutely not. And the reason that Iran has not capitulated to the pressure of this military buildup is because of what they have unveiled. Now, they have other hypersonic missiles that go Mach 15 and stuff like this, the Fatah 2. Iran has some of the most advanced missile capability in the world and definitely in the Middle East. More specifically, though, they unveiled a 4th-generation Khorramshahr ballistic missile that can reach Israel in 8 minutes. And they're saying right here, according to War Pulse on X, that Tehran could retaliate by launching 500 of these Khorramshahr 4 ballistic missiles toward Israel, capable of carrying a 1,500-kilogram warhead. I've seen reports that say 2,000 kilograms and reach Israel in about 8 minutes, which is highly significant. Again, if it's that heavy of a payload, that is nuclear capable. I just wrote an article about this at overcomebabylon.com. In fact, I haven't made a whole lot of videos here because I actually prefer to write articles these days. It's just easier, faster. I'm able to get information out there quicker. I'm kind of burned out on videography and all that kind of stuff. So go check out overcomebabylon.com. It's just easier with my workflow right now in my life. It's gotten a little too busy for me. Go check that out, overcomebabylon.com. What's cool is it's connected to Substack. And so if you have the Substack app, or if you already have an account with Substack, it's a seamless integration. When you just go to Overcome Babylon, you can just check all that stuff out. It makes it easier to follow, make comments, and that kind of stuff. So yes, overcomebabylon.com is connected to Substack. You don't need the app, but it makes it cool to have the app and be able to interact and stuff like that. So I encourage you to do that, to keep updated and get prepared for what we're going to be seeing with the Khorramshahrs being deployed by Iran. They've already been deployed to all their missile cities on February 6th is when that news started coming out. And so this 4th-generation missile that was unveiled in 2023, now in 2026 is being deployed. This is huge in the face of the Trump-Israel buildup in the Middle East. How is this all going to play out? I invite you to check out this conversation that I'm going to share here. I'm going to repost it here from The Way Remnant. Jeff Brannon and I had a conversation about this. We did a pretty big deep dive last night talking about biblical prophecy, emotional, spiritual, and physical preparedness, how to actually get ready to face the last days with confidence. Because let me tell you, when this all starts going down and there are out of control strikes going back and forth between Israel, the U.S., and Iran, and then China gets involved, Pakistan gets involved, this is going to escalate completely out of control. You need to be ready now, like I said, to face these last days with confidence. And I hope and pray that this presentation, this conversation that Jeff and I had will help you to do that. And that is my whole goal here at Overcome Babylon, is to help you prepare and be ready because we are going to see some of the biggest prophetic events and upheavals that the Bible has warned us about. In fact, it's been warning God's people for a very long time of these things, but now we're in the time of the end. We're going to see it all unfold. So again, get ready. God bless you, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hey, shalom, everybody. Shalom. Welcome to the Way Remnant. I'm Jeff Brannon. I have with me tonight a very special broadcast tonight, guys. Live. We've got some stuff going on, developing. And Abraham Ojeda, welcome back to the Way Remnant.
Thank you so much, brother. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. And we have some analysis and stuff to talk about. I can't wait to dive into it.
Yeah.
Israel, Iran, the United States, it's all getting hotter than ever. So there's a lot we need to talk about and cover.
I tell you, I was looking just a while ago. I pulled this up 7 hours ago. Iran preparing for war with U.S. U.S. military moves into position for possible Iran strikes. U.S. Donald Trump considering military strikes. Iran rebuilds nuclear site as U.S. threatens. I mean, it is just all over the place. It's this is unfolding. This is urgent. This is critical. And Abraham, I couldn't think of anybody else I'd rather talk to about this on air. And there's a lot of misinformation going on. There's a lot of speculation. And I want to try to get us grounded tonight and just really look at this through a biblical lens. So I thank you for coming on tonight.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, this is all very short notice. You just kind of hit me up like yesterday. Like I got your text late and I was like, all right, man, let's just do it because
before Shabbat. And you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, man, this is something I've been talking about. Like I told you, since 2022, I had been talking about a few very specific passages of scripture. One of them, we'll go through them. There are three specific, not just verses, chapters.
Wow.
That we're now seeing unfold on the world stage. And you guys can go into Google and you can type how much of the Bible is prophecy, what percentage of the Bible is prophecy, and you're going to get some very standard academic type of answers: 30%, 25%, maybe 40%. But the more that I've understood, the lost tribes of Israel, right? All northern house of Israel, house of Judah in the south. You understand these things. Oh, man. And you understand the depth and the breadth of all the prophecies of the Bible. I mean, it has to be greater than 60%.
Absolutely.
70% of the Bible is prophecy. And so that's why when I say we're seeing chapters unfolding on the world stage, it's not an exaggeration. It's just that people are very conditioned to think about the Bible a certain way, both from academia, from the pulpits. Culturally, we think most of it is kind of a history book, but it's actually telling us what's about to happen to our nations in the last days. So,
guys, listen, if you're watching this live, I would encourage you to share this out. We literally just made the program and popped it out, and try to share this out on the social media platforms that you're watching. People need to hear this because there's a lot of people getting scared in one direction and peaceful in a direction maybe they shouldn't be. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on, Abraham, with this. And you're absolutely right. When people look at the Bible and they think that it's just, like you say, a very low percentage of prophecy, they don't understand the dualistic way that the scriptures were wrote. And sometimes you can have a verse and it applies to several different things at once. It can apply to something that happened right then or was going to happen 10, 15, 150 years from when it was wrote, all the way till now. I mean, there's all kinds of things like that. And so, that's exciting to see. Yeah. And we would, we've got a lot of folks in chat already talking about this stuff. So Abraham, what do you think? Okay. So let's just, maybe we start like this. When you first started hearing about recently, Donald Trump, Israel, they're beefing up for war again with Iran. We just 6-8 months ago just bombed Iran, destroyed their nuclear facilities, did all this stuff. Supposedly, okay, everything's fine. Then we start having this civil uprising we had a civil uprising then. It looked like Iran was going to, topple their government. Now they're doing it again. Iran comes in, starts stomping it down. Iranians asked for help. We didn't do anything, even though we said we were. And now things are escalating again. And now Trump is stepping in. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, those are great questions. Thanks for bringing that context to the table because, you look at the rioting in Iran. Of course, there are people that are unhappy with the Ayatollah. Of course, there are people that don't want to be under what we perceive as a radical Islamic regime. However, when you look deeper into who funded so much of the unrest, that they were Mossad agents with high levels of weaponry, sophisticated communication networks, and all these types of things, you understand that this was a Western-backed, funded attempt at overthrowing the regime from the inside, not so much organic movement. But there's so much disinformation and so many, because everybody wants to pick sides, right? Everybody wants, there's patriotic Iranians and there's patriotic, obviously, Israelis and Americans. Everybody wants to look at the information that's out there, and if it confirms and supports their bias, they kind of just roll in that direction without analytically looking at all of it.
Right.
And the thing I'll say, Jeff, is the conflict that we're seeing right now, prophetically, it's in the Bible so many different ways, and I can't wait to talk about it. We're going to look at Ezekiel 22, Zechariah 5, Isaiah 22. We'll touch on these.
Okay.
Last year in 2025, there were 2 blood moons that were extremely significant. One was in March of 2025. One was in September. And when you look at the midpoint of these blood moons, the exact middle was one day. It's about a day before the 12-day war.
Wow.
Okay. So that's what kind of when I look at cycles, when I look at biblical astronomy, when I look at history, when I look at prophecy, I like to overlap everything to get a bigger picture. And so you look at the blood moon in March, it was over the United States. It was the primary recipient. You look at the blood moon in September of last year, and it's right over, guess where? Of course, Pakistan, Western China, but Iran is a direct recipient of that blood moon. Well, you kind of see how it's written in the stars, so to speak, that the 12-day war was right in the middle of this blood moon cycle. And of course, God is telling us that the United States is going to get involved with the Middle Eastern conflict. And now you're seeing the headlines. We're seeing the biggest troop buildup since 2003, since Desert Storm.
Right.
We're seeing
Iraq and Afghanistan and everything. Yeah, it's incredible. The fact that he's calling all these naval ships in, I mean, it's massive what's going on right now.
Yeah, Jeff. And going back to like the Iranian unrest that was Western backed, in my view, and I know a lot of people would agree with that who are really analyzing these things. Iran has long been a prize of the Israeli government. Like, if they can topple and overthrow Iran, they will have a lot of dominance in the region. However, what a lot of people don't understand, and I really have to emphasize this, Jeff.
Okay.
Pakistan is even more of a threat to Israel than Iran is. In fact, Iran is what's exactly. Pakistan has nukes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know some of the history behind that, but back when they first developed those nuclear weapons, Pakistan's nuclear program, the Israeli IDF with the Indian government tried to actually go in and bomb locations, but their plan was thwarted, and the Pakistani government was able to actually there's some cool videos on YouTube. They were able to basically detect with early radar detection and different things. They were able to foil their plan and be ready. So they actually had to abandon the mission, the Indian-Israeli joint mission, to actually bomb Pakistan's nuclear sites. Wow. And that was back in I believe it was in the 80s. Don't quote me, but I believe it was in the 80s when that was going down. And so, I mean, Iran is the thing right now. But I mean, I'm telling you guys, like, Israel wants domination of all West Asia and the whole Middle East to continue the greater Israel project. I mean, this is not just ending with Iran, but obviously the Bible has a little bit more to say about Iran's role and how this is going to play out.
Well, I just want to throw into the mix, and I didn't even tell you I was going to bring this up, but, the release of the Epstein files, the concrete evidence of 2 former presidents of Israel, being heavily involved, with all of this horrible stuff that has gone on with sexual immorality and child trafficking and different things like this. And so, listen, whichever way someone falls down on who and what Israel is, I know they can stand with us condemning the involvement with the allegations, the very strong allegations, with with the Epstein files. I also want to talk to and also say this from the get-go: the people that are in Iran, I pray for. This is some tremendous stuff that's going on. Whichever way you fall out on this, guys, look, there are people that are being killed. There are people that are being tortured and different things like this. But at the same time, Abraham, to your point, there's also a lot of misinformation coming out. And so we want to be sensitive when we're talking about some of these things tonight. And because, listen, I know some people's emotions get running very high. We want to be able to present something that's very factual with the knowledge that we have available to us right now, and coming at it from a biblical worldview. I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff. And if you could I want to share an article. This was from just, I think, a couple days ago. Zero Hedge reported this. I found this little quote here very, very important. So basically, we had this tremendous troop buildup, bigger than the 12-day war. Obviously, Israel and the United States are planning a joint attack preemptively. And this is what this article says. All this looks to be going down with no public or congressional debate whatsoever. With the attention of Congress and public otherwise occupied, there's little debate about what could be the most consequential U.S. military intervention in the Middle East in at least a decade, notes Axios. And that is exactly why they released the Epstein files. That's one of the reasons. There's different reasons, right?
And I also want to say, I think that's the reason the whole Supreme Court thing just came out on tariffs, and Trump has gone into a tirade and a fit about tariffs because it's now you've got one half of the country focused on Epstein files. You got the other half of the country focused on tariffs, and there's not any news since the last set. Since that information dropped about the preparing for war, maybe launching this weekend, it's been silent. We haven't heard anything except Epstein files and then tariffs. Again, it's just look over here, look over here, look over here, and it's just smoke and mirrors. And how are they looking at doing the biggest military things since Iraq or Afghanistan without congressional approval?
Yeah, and how many wars have we had, or just regime overthrows, or all kinds of little coups and all these little things without congressional approval, which is how the country is supposed to be run. But that's another topic. But yeah, the distraction is out there for a very specific reason. There's there should be protests in the streets over sending our young men and women to go die overseas. And I hate to be the bring the sobering news, because people like to shoot the messenger, but the Bible speaks very, very harshly about the U.S. What's going on, the fact that they're sending so many troops over there, what's about to happen. The Bible's not silent on this. In fact, this is one of the things I warned about earlier, Jeff. As 2026 was rolling in, I was like, guys, this is one of the key prophecies I'm looking for. I'm looking for a troop buildup in the Middle East. I'm looking for an American. It could be the British, Dutch, it doesn't matter, but definitely the Americans are going to be there. But I'm looking for a big military buildup in the Middle East before we see Ezekiel 22. I don't know if you want to jump into that, Jeff, or if you want to talk about some other things. I will say this. We have this on screen, Matthew 24. But go ahead, Jeff. I want to, if you want to start rolling into the scriptures.
Oh, well, I'm just saying that, look, I guess before we dive into this, look, Abraham, I started waking up to some ideas that my country that I love my country. I love my God better. Right. And I think there's a definitely a pecking order. Right. So I do love my country, but I began to wake up to some very disturbing facts, probably after 9/11, after some other things that went on, and I'm just like, man, some of the stuff that I thought was true was not, and it was very disturbing.
Yeah.
The word cognitive dissonance really comes to mind, because it's like you see something and you're like, well, that can't be, because hey, we're the good guys, or we're this, or guys, listen. While the American people may be, feeling one way, look, different other people around the world are also the same way. No one is necessarily. I don't know how to say that, but look, we've had things painted before our eyes about how great America is, but we have been led by many occultists. We have been led by many people that were, Christian in name only type thing. I grew up, I was raised up in Texas, very red state. And I remember, when I was in elementary school, we had a mock election, and we overwhelmingly elected President Ronald Reagan, when I was in elementary school, and that just shows what the parents were saying. But Reagan, they were having seances in the White House. LBJ was a sexual deviant. I'm getting all kind of stuff about just presidents in our lifetimes, right? And we are not. So I say that to say, when we also talk about Israel, many people have this idea that we're supposed to support Israel no matter what they do. And look, when I talk about Israel, there's two different Israels. One is the nation state, the actual state of Israel that we see today. And then the other Israel that I like to talk about is what Paul talks about in Romans, where he talks about this natural olive tree that some branches have been broken off of because of unbelief, and then some wild branches were grafted back into. So I just want to kind of say that it took me a little while to have some of the tint taken off my glasses, if you will, because it was difficult to see some of those things. So I just want to reach out to people tonight. You may be hearing some things that may be difficult for you to hear. I ask that you just take them very slowly and research it out to see if the things that we're saying are true. All right, bro. That's what I was wanting to bring up there.
Yeah, man. For me, it was 2013. That's when I first learned about 9/11.
Yeah.
And even then, I didn't understand the full depth of it like I have just in the past few years, past 3 years. Because there's a lot to that. I'll just say this: you have Israel at war with Iraq, Afghanistan, the Yemen's Houthis. They were at war, and Iran also was involved. With hostilities towards Israel during the late 90s. And then, wow, what do you know? A big event happens on U.S. soil, and all of a sudden the United States is going there and helping to secure Israel's borders, So whether, you think this group was involved, radical jihadi or whatever, it doesn't matter. The outcome was Israel was guaranteed security and expansion of its borders in the Middle East. That is what the Iraq, Afghanistan occupations and the wars actually did. It guaranteed. That was the outcome. And so what Netanyahu was saying back then is the same thing that he has been saying now. Benjamin Netanyahu had been saying in the late 90s, early thousands, hey, Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. That's why we need to go in there and take him out. Weapons of mass destruction. He has the ability to have a nuclear weapon. Atomic bomb is how he used to say it. Mm-hmm. We need to go in there and take it. Well, guess what happened? We did. But because there was a terror event on U.S. soil, it just played into the hand. It played into the narrative of us needing to be there to occupy. What I find interesting and striking about this particular go around, Jeff, is I was expecting, and I have been expecting, some kind of an event to happen on U.S. soil. I've been kind of like warning people about that. Hey, prepare, don't go to mass gathering events. I have been telling people, hey, I think there's going to be some kind of an event on American soil blamed on the Iranians to actually rally the people in a more cohesive way to go to war and be willing to go to war, especially in a draft situation against the Iranians. When you study these things, they need a military occupation, taking out the Ayatollah's son, whatever they're talking about right now. It's not going to be enough. You do need actually a full occupation of the area to guarantee a transition of power. I know they want to put the Shah back in.
Right.
I forget this. Yeah. They want to reinstitute the monarchy of Iran. and make it a pro-Zionist Western-backed nation, just like they usually try to do. So they in order to really carry this out, they would need an actual ground invasion to ensure successful regime change, because it's not Venezuela's Maduro that you're just going to kidnap in one night. I mean, you're looking at a heavily militarized nation, the most advanced hypersonic technology besides maybe China. I mean, I've read some things about Chinese technology, but I mean, this is the archers of Elam in Bible prophecy, as we'll talk about. The Iranians have a very special place in this whole picture of God's timeline, biblical prophecy. This is not going to end well for the U.S. in Israel. It's not going to end well for both of this joint mission that they're trying to do.
And just to let people know, look, I love the people in Iran. I love the people that are over in Israel. I pray for our older brother Judah. I hate that it's named Israel because it's mainly the tribe of Judah, but But look, I love our older brother Judah, and I pray for their salvation. I pray that they come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua HaMashiach. I pray that they come to recognize Yeshua as Mashiach. And they let go of this Kabbalistic, extra biblical, if you want to do that, with the oral Torah traditions. We talk about Mormons having an extra book, and we've got a lot of folks in the Hebrew roots movement that if they find an extra book, they can't wait to add it to their canon. But the same thing with the most people in Judaism, they exalt the oral Torah even above the written Torah. It's just commentary, and a lot of it's pretty bad stuff. But look, we want to see Israel come to Yeshua, but the Bible has some rough stuff to talk about Jerusalem in particular in the last days. Do you see that? Are you saying this is maybe what's about to get teed up?
Yeah, and I'll say this. I'm going to say this right now, Jeff. This is kind of, I don't know, predictive in a way, but it's just the way that we read the prophecies. If you could put Matthew 24 on screen, verse 15, we're told when there's a particular period of time called the Great Tribulation, and Christ tells us, hey, it's verse 20, pray that your flight may not be in the winter or the Sabbath.
Yeah.
And if you look at the context there, right? Verse 15 is talking about what's called the abomination of desolation. We'll all hopefully add a little bit of, I'll set that up a little bit, hopefully to help you guys understand that if you maybe not 100% sure on what that is. I'm just telling you right now, the mainstream seminary, church interpretations of that, commentary Bibles, they all got it wrong. It's not a historical event. It's a last days future event. And then there's going to be great tribulation once that abomination of desolation is visible. And then, so we're being told in verse 20, we should be looking for winter or Sabbath for the kickoff of a time that the world has never seen, the greatest time of trouble. This is from Daniel chapter 12, actually, when Jesus talks about the great tribulation has not been since the creation of the world. That he's actually quoting Daniel 12. Michael the archangel was talking about that to Daniel.
Right.
So what we're talking about is a great time of trouble. It kicks off with abomination of desolation, and it tells us when it'll happen. There will be tribulation in the winter or Sabbath. So this is what I'm going to say, Jeff. If we don't see the Iran-Israel war kick off in the next month, I'm talking about the Hebrew month. Right now it's February 21st, right? So we just had a new moon on Wednesday, the 18th. So if we don't see the war kick off within the next 25-ish days, 20, whatever that is, 26, 27-ish days, we will have to wait 6 months from now, and it will be the winter of 2026, 2027, like if we think about 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Because with the limitation, the parameters of Great Tribulation, which is extremely important, guys. We're talking about worldwide thermonuclear warfare. That's how I read it. I'll break that down a little bit more. I know maybe I'm beating myself to the punchline here, but I just have to tell it. I have to tell it straight. Worldwide thermonuclear war, World War III. We're looking at, if it doesn't happen the next 20-ish days, we have to wait 6 months according to what we just read because it can only begin in the winter. And when we're looking at the Hebrew Bible, you go back to Genesis.
Yeah.
When you go to Genesis chapter, I believe it's 7 or 8, Noah gets off the ark. He builds an altar, sacrifices clean animals to God. He smells the aroma and he says, winter and summer will not cease. This is the blessing I'm going to bless the earth with. Winter and summer. So in God's mind, in the vernacular of the Bible, there's only 2 seasons, not 4 seasons, 2. Winter and summer. And so when Christ says winter, this is when the Great Tribulation happens in the winter, then we're almost out of the winter right now because we're in the 12th Hebrew month. We only have a few days, few weeks left. We'll have to wait till next year. And according to the barley reports, I'm not sure if you're a Side of Moon and barley guy.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah, you look at the barley reports. We're not looking at 13 months this year. It's looking like it's going to be a standard 12-month year.
Right.
The barley is it's progressing very nicely. There's been enough rainfall and these sorts of things, and so the barley is ready for the month of Abib, the first month of the year, which literally the month Abib, it means green ears of barley.
Right.
We're almost out of the winter. So again, the next 21-ish days are going to be very important to watch. Will we see a regional war that leads to nuclear war, an exchange between the biggest superpowers in the world? Is it going to happen this next 20-ish days? If it doesn't happen now, we're going to maybe have to wait till 6 months. But honestly, based off of all the chatter, I don't see how much longer we can wait for this.
Look, Iran launched everything they could have, I think, before at Israel when we helped them attack last time. And this time, we are trying to topple them and get them out of power. How much more do you think that they are going to be calling, even if they don't have a nuke themselves? How much more? Maybe they do. Maybe they have a nuke. Maybe they don't. Maybe they call one of their friends, one of their allies, Russia, China. You can go down the list. Hey, give us a nuke. We have to stay in power. And man, it could get ugly like that.
Yeah. So let's look at Ezekiel 22, Jeff. I think this is one of the places it's going to give us a lot of light on what you're talking about here.
Okay.
So when we're looking at Ezekiel, he's a captive in Babylon when he gets all these words, right? Israel had already been conquered. Judah had already been conquered. Okay, so you need to understand context, right? We all need to understand context to look at Ezekiel. Who is the prophet? When did he write these things? And look what he says. This is a last days prophecy. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, the house of Israel. Now that's a very specific phrase, right? That's referring to the north.
Right.
The northern kingdom. So those are 10 tribes, not Jews, but like house of Israel is different. Yeah. And God is saying the house of Israel has become dross to me. They're all bronze, tin, iron, and lead in the midst of a furnace. They have become dross from silver. So dross, for those who may not be familiar with, refining, it's the unwanted part of metal. It's what you throw away. It's the trash. And God's saying you become what I absolutely don't want, undesirable filth, the filth of the metal that you just discard to the side. Okay, that's the house of Israel. That's the subject. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, because you have all become dross, therefore, behold, I will gather you into the midst of Jerusalem. As men gather silver, bronze, iron, lead, and tin into the midst of a furnace to blow fire on it, to melt it. So I will gather you in my anger and in my fury, and I will leave you there and melt you. Yes, I will gather you and blow on you with the fire of my wrath, and you shall be melted in its midst, as silver is melted in the midst of a furnace. Wow. So you shall be melted in its midst. Then you shall know that I, the Lord, Yehovah, have poured my fury on you. Now, the reason why this is not historical is because the house of Israel has never been gathered in the midst of Jerusalem to be judged. And so modern scholars have no idea what to do with this. They have no clue. You have to allegorize it. It's a metaphor for something else. The house of Israel in all of history was never brought into Jerusalem and melted. Now, the key word here, Jeff, is, and it took me a long time to figure this one out. The word midst, taveh, I believe it's tavek or taveh, but midst, it doesn't mean to be in within like the metropolitan area of Jerusalem, right? That's not what it's talking about. The word actually, more often than not, so yes, to be in the midst of is the number one way it's translated in the King James Version, for instance, but the second way that it's translated most often is among. And specifically, it's kind of used with the object or a modifier to be numbered among, to be among the number of Jerusalem. And so when you understand this properly as a last days prophecy, which it is, because the house of Israel's never been judged in Jerusalem ever, right? Samaria was conquered by the Assyrians, and that was that. It was not that they weren't there when the Babylonians came. That's just not how it played out.
Yeah.
So you look at among, right? There it is, brother.
Yeah, Tavek.
So you look at among, it means to be numbered among Jerusalem. Well, guess what? Jerusalem was recently, I mean, for a while, but officially, Trump definitely made it clear, hey, we're moving our embassy to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the Washington, D.C. Jerusalem is the Washington, D.C. or the London of the modern state of Israel.
Yeah.
So when it says to be numbered among Jerusalem, it's talking about military fortification. It's talking about bringing ships, those Western ships of Tarshish. There's different ways the Bible talks about this all happening. But when we're talking about, okay, we had 112 C-130s, cargo plane after cargo plane after cargo plane, just on February 8th, that was reported. I mean, it's been a couple of weeks since that, you know, it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow.
Those things are massive.
Absolutely.
If you've ever seen one in real life, it boggles the mind. They put tanks with an S inside of them, right?
I had one fly over my house. I used to live in the mountains, Jeff, like outside of Colorado Springs, and they would do like routine just training flights, and one flew like almost over my house. It was in my backyard. I saw it, freaked me out because it was so large. It's such a big aircraft. You're absolutely right.
I used to work in Marietta, Ohio, and there was a military base that they did maneuvers with those things. And you're like, how is that massive plane doing what it's doing right now? I'm just, anyway. Yeah. So
yeah, guys, what we're seeing here, Jeff, is the military buildup is the fulfillment of the prophecy. And what we're being shown is something is about to happen where we're about to lose all like 300 F-15s and F-35s we just sent over there. We're about to lose our B-52, B-2 bombers. We're about to lose like all the infantry, everything that we've sent, our aircraft carriers. This is what this prophecy is saying. Now, it may seem like it's isolated cherry picking, but this is just one of many things that I have to demonstrate that there is going to be the West collectively gathered to support Israel, and then it's all going to go down, guys. It's all going to go down. The Western Empire is about to crumble.
Wow.
I know, it's heavy. It's heavy, man.
And again, you're talking about the house of Israel is being gathered into the midst of Jerusalem. And if we could just kind of go back just a little bit to that idea, who is the house of Israel today? That's these nations, right? That's these nations coming around. Bam. That's amazing stuff.
We've talked about this here on the Way Remnant before. You look at the crests, you look at the migration patterns, you look at where Paul and the apostles were going to evangelize the lost sheep of the house of Israel. It was all over Greece, Asia Minor, Greece, all the way to Spain. And then there's multitudes of evidence to show that they went to the UK, the northernmost part of the earth.
Yeah.
Is how it's translated in the King James Version, the uttermost part of the earth. So all these Western nations collectively clearly have some biblical significance that most of Western Christianity can't seem to identify because they've lost the knowledge of simply who they are and where they came from in their ancestry.
So I just want to be clear to the audience. I want to make sure that I'm hearing you right. You're saying that Israel, that the house of Israel that had been dispersed amongst the Gentiles, amongst the nations, right, is actually coming and being gathered. God is saying, look, you're dross, and I'm gathering you in the midst of Jerusalem, amongst Jerusalem. And that's what we're seeing right now. Is that where you're going to? Okay.
Yeah. And when I first talked about this back in 2022, I did a podcast on it and I tried to explain it. I thought it was going to be maybe something connected to the third temple. I thought maybe it was going to be something directed towards people just celebrating maybe some of the feasts, because there's pilgrimages from all over the world where people come, for Sukkot
Yeah.
to Israel and they set up tents. But now that we're seeing how it's unfolding, this is a military force that is, remember, numbered among the Washington, D.C. of the state of Israel. And that is clearly the United States. That is clearly the UK. And then, of course, a lot of the EU countries, France, they're joining, they're going to be joining, and they already have, they're all there. But mostly it's the US. So,
yeah.
Thoughts on that, Jeff? I don't know if we've talked about this one before.
Verse 20 is for our people that are going over there. Being melted. I will gather you in my anger and in my fury, and I will leave you there and melt you. Oh.
And here's the thing, Jeff, like people listening to this that are kind of, they already have that worldview. They're very biased. Oh, Abraham, that's impossible. The Americans have the best military in the world. What are you talking about? But guys, we're a paper tiger. Anybody can tell you this who actually understands military tech. And they're just reported just a couple days ago, the Chinese have already brought in, because the Chinese, the Iranians, the Russians, they're all part of BRICS, guys. It's the BRICS alliance: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa plus. The BRICS alliance has been working heavily. I've been talking about this too, Jeff, heavily together with everything from military technology to transporting chemicals, weapons, everything. They're sharing infrastructure to get away from the US dollar and the hegemony of the West. And the Iranians have actually gotten basically radar jamming technology from the Chinese that's way more advanced than what we even know that we even have. And this is known that the Chinese have more advanced technology than what the Americans have. The Iranians have more advanced hypersonic capabilities than what the United States has. And the drones, you look at some of the drones that Iran had been using against Israel. You have a company in Arizona right now that's trying to copy it, and they've come up with their prototype, but the Iranians beat the United States in drone technology, let alone some of these maybe more sophisticated things, because you can make a drone. The problem is we make them here. They're so expensive. The Iranians figured out how to use a lawnmower engine. Basically, I'm using colloquial terms, throw a lawnmower engine on there. That's like only 30 grand when it's a completed product, and it can do the same damage as something we spend $1 million on.
Right.
You just can't compete with that kind of innovation. And so that is what we're seeing. That's part of the equation of what's going on here. I know it might be very unbelievable for the American patriot, for the hardcore American patriot that's listening to this.
If you just finished watching the Super Bowl and doing your red, white, and blue dance and all this kind of fun stuff, you've been drinking the Kool-Aid, guys. And look, that every military does this. I just want to say, I remember when we were going into we were just about to take out Saddam Hussein, and do you remember the general that Iraq had? And he's on TV. He's like, "The Americans will not get in. We are fine. We will be good." And like tanks are like in the background coming in on him. Right? Every military does this. It's bravado. It's we're number one. We're going to do this. And look, I'm cool with it. That's cool. But look, don't get caught up in the hype. And realize, Abraham, if you're right about Ezekiel 22:20, and this being our men and women, our boys and girls, our allies all over the world, and different things that may or may not get drawn into this, I will gather you in my anger and in my fury, and I will leave you there and melt you. That is terrifying.
Yeah, and when you look at the context of this in conjunction with other key passages that have to do with our generation, it's because transgression has reached its fullness, Jeff. I mean, lawlessness. It's the rejection of God as our defense, right? Everybody's trusting in military technology, but it's particularly an abomination for Jacob, for Israel, for God's people to be trusting in military technology. We've fallen so far. No one prays before they go to battle. No one cares. I mean, so because of we've broken covenant and the time is now, right? There's specific timing to these things. It's not random on the timeline of history, but it's a very specific time we're in. We've reached the climactic turning point where these things now need to happen. And again, the fact that we're even seeing this level of military buildup with what I'm about to show you next from the scriptures is massive, guys. I just want to show this on screen. I talked about this. This was, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
We had so many C-17s going over there, Desert Storm levels. We have Trump now saying, this was just a few hours ago, reported anyway, that Trump is saying, hey, we're going to kill Khamenei and his son. We have other options, but that's all this stuff. But, when you look at what the scriptures say, we're going to look at, so the first place we looked at was Ezekiel 22, right?
Yeah.
We looked at Matthew 24. Matthew 24 is very important too.
Sure.
Is Isaiah 22 is really the next spot that really, it shows you what is going on with Ezekiel 22. It's funny. They're the same number in the chapter numbering.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's just kind of coincidence in my opinion, but it's something that I'll point out. Ezekiel 22, Isaiah 22, the burden against the valley of vision. Now remember, when Isaiah is writing these things, Isaiah is a prophet of the south. He is alive during the failed Assyrian Empire strike against Judah that happened in 701 BC. So
can you blow that up a little bit, brother?
Absolutely, yes.
Yep. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, so Isaiah the prophet, we're reading Isaiah the prophet's words, and he was around all the way from, a couple of kings all the way to the very end, and he even talks about the death of Sennacherib. When I mean the end, I mean the end of the Assyrian, a failed attempt at conquering Judah. And we read about the 185,000 Assyrian soldiers that die at the hand of the angel of the Lord under Hezekiah. So this is why I say this. It's so critical. It's so important. When we're reading Isaiah 22, it's never happened before that Jerusalem, the valley of vision, it's synonymous. It's never been conquered the way that you read it right here, guys. It's never happened before. Check it out. The burden against the valley of vision. What ails you now that you have all gone up to the housetops? Well, guess what? I want to make this connection for you real quick. Did we not just read about this with Jesus? Let him who was on the housetop not go down and take anything out of his house. Why are they in the housetops in Judea and Jerusalem and the regions there? Why are they on the housetops? Well, actually, Jesus is quoting Isaiah 22, brother. I don't know if you've ever seen this connection.
I have not. You just, that's that. I was when you highlighted that, it clicked, and I'm like, I hope you go back to Matthew, and then you went back to Matthew. I'm like, man.
But here's the thing.
Wow.
Why are they on the housetops, brother? Because they have their smartphones out. We've seen this already. We saw it in 2024 for the very first time in April of, I believe it was April 11th or 12th of 2024 for the very first time. All these Israelis and Palestinians with their phones on their flat roofs, because it's the Middle East, they don't have pitched roofs. Right. It's all flat because they don't need to worry about snow like we do here, whatever. So they have these square roofs. Everybody stands on the roofs. They're all uploading these videos on X, on TikTok, on Instagram. They're uploading all these videos of missiles coming and hitting, not necessarily Jerusalem, although there were some strikes in the area. Tel Aviv. Oh, yeah. We've all heard the song at this point, probably. It's gotten like hundreds of millions of views all over the internet, but and I don't like the song, by the way. I don't like glorifying anybody getting attacked. I hate the idea of bloodshed. Okay.
Yeah.
And as God's people, like, you've already done a good job establishing that, Jeff. We're not here to pick sides and celebrate when people die. That's just weird. That's just evil.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're looking at, obviously, people are on the housetops. What ails you now that you've gone to the housetops? You who are full of noise, a tumultuous city, a joyous city. Now, here's the key. This tells us this is modern archery. Check this out. Your slain men are not slain with the sword, nor dead in battle. All your rulers have fled together. By the way, every time there's an attack on Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu goes to Greece. He goes to Cyprus. He already flees. Same with some of his other generals. They leave.
Wow.
But they flee. But, okay, so the people are captured by the archers. All who are found in you are bound together. They have fled from afar. Therefore I said, look away from me. I will weep bitterly. Do not labor to comfort me because of the plundering of the daughter of my people. So it's saying They
Wow.
are captured by the archers. Jerusalem is captured by the archers. If you go and read about the Babylonian conquest that happened in 586 BC, it
Hmm.
never happened that it was pure archery. No sword, no battle, just archery. That didn't happen. It didn't
Wow.
happen like that. This is not speaking about a historical event. And then it tells you who is actually involved. It gives you two regions. Elam bore the quiver with chariots of men and horsemen, and Kir uncovered the shield. When you look at Elam, guys, it's the modern day border of Iran, right there in the western side. Elam is the southwest part of Iran, right where the Zagros Mountains are. And guess where they have a lot of their missile silos locked, loaded, ready to go, pointed at Israel, right there at the ancient territory of Elam.
Wow.
Kir, when you look at Kir, that is a Middle East coalition that goes across the entire land of Mesopotamia, generally speaking. So you can be talking about all the way from the Iraqis to the Afghanis, maybe even the Turkish, but it's a Middle Eastern coalition, generally speaking. And guess what?
Right.
They're already announcing this.
Yeah.
If the U.S. and Israel preemptively strike against Iran, all of Iraq and Afghanistan, everybody is joining in on this tremendous battle. And even though they may not be advanced militarily like Iran is, they're still going to activate terror cells. They're going to make life
Yeah.
miserable, absolute living hell for anybody who is going to be participating in occupation forces against Iran, and then try to do the destabilization regime change that they really want to do to guarantee the greater Israel project. So,
Wow. And Isaiah, by the unction of the Holy Spirit, pinned this down roughly 2,700 years ago, and we're looking at it as a blueprint for the events that are going on, perhaps even just maybe beginning this weekend.
yeah. And what it's
Oh,
so Christ gave us when it'll happen, winter or Sabbath, but I
right.
do find it interesting. So there's the city of David's going to be damaged.
Yep.
The number of the houses of Jerusalem, the houses are going to get broken down. I
Mm.
mean, it talks about Israel's going to get it, but it says, um, in the specific day, God called for weeping and for mourning, but
Mm.
everybody didn't care. You know, they were eating
But
and drinking.
instead, oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. And so if you know about the Hillel calendar of Judaism, they always keep the Day of Atonement at the wrong time.
yeah.
Because of tradition, like they won't keep it at the right time. They kind of just insert some extra dead weight so you can't have back-to-back Sabbaths. They have all these different requirements for things.
Right.
And so what I believe we're seeing here is a possible reference to Day of Atonement, which again is why I said, hey, if we don't see something in the next 20-ish days, it will have to wait, maybe for Day of Atonement 2026, but anything's possible because it's a little vague. We don't know for sure. But one thing is for sure, Jeff, this past Day of Atonement,
Mm.
the Judaism Hillel 2 calendar did not observe Day of Atonement on the correct day. Even worse, they were continuing their bombing campaigns in
On,
Gaza
yeah.
and so forth on a holy day. I mean, this is just even, they just don't care. They're not following anything close to what the Torah, the spirit of the Torah, the spirit and the letter of it. They're not following the God of the Bible. Like you said, they're following a Kabbalistic counterfeit religion.
Well,
You know?
and they just a little history for people, because and I don't want to get into calendar wars at all, but how did they develop this calendar system that they're on right now? It was heavily influenced when they were in captivity in Babylon, and they're like, well, let's just use some math, let's adopt some things, and we get in all kinds of different names for the months. We get I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah,
And
like Tammuz.
yes, yeah.
Weeping for Tammuz.
Why do we have the name? Anyway, okay. I don't want to get into. I want to sidetrack us with calendar war.
I know, brother. I didn't mean to go there really that long, but it's necessary to address. Hey, God is calling for them to actually follow him, and they refused. This is the essence of the judgment of Isaiah 22. It's the same essence of the judgment of Ezekiel 22. And as I'm going to show you right here for everybody with us here live, it's the same essence of the problem with Zechariah 5. So this is our third place tonight for three prophecies to look at. I posted this in the Telegram on February 8th. The Iranian Khorramshahr 4 missile has been deployed in IRGC Missile City. So they basically have unveiled the 4th generation of the Khorramshahr, which has a range of 2,000 kilometers. And the Iranians are saying it's capable of carrying a 1,500 kilogram warhead. And of course, the bigger the warhead, the bigger the payload is, the bigger the explosion and the damage is going to be. And so this can reach Israel in 8 minutes. It's being reported 8 minutes, guys.
8 minutes.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And they are, I mean, they're just saying they have it now. Clearly, they've had them in their possession. They've just been testing them. But this is the 4th generation. I'm going to show you why that's so important because it ties directly into Zechariah 5.
That just blows my mind. 8 minutes. Look, I live in town. Quicker than I can get to Walmart. You're saying this missile could be launched from Iran and hit Israel.
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing is, Jeff, is they actually have the Fatah 2 hypersonic that can hit in about 6.5 minutes.
Wow.
So, I mean, they have better tech. There's a reason I'm showing you the Khorramshahr, however.
Okay.
It has to do with this on screen, okay?
Okay.
Now, when you open up a Bible commentary, right? Matthew Henry's commentary, whatever.
Right.
Oh my guys, we got this one wrong for many, many centuries. Okay, we just did.
Yeah.
People have not understood these words. Accept that for what it is and look at it for what it's actually saying, okay? Zechariah gets a vision and he says, so he's one of the 3 post-exilic prophets. So, but by post-exilic, I'm talking about 722 BC already happened. The northern house of Israel has already been judged. And 586 had already happened. The house of Judah was already judged. So when we're reading about this, it's by no means historical. It's talking about, okay, there's a flying scroll. Sometime in the future, what is it? What is the size of it? Where is it coming from? Why is God allowing this curse? It's called a curse.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at it. Then I turned and raised my eyes and saw there a flying scroll. The word used there is Megillah. Sefer would be like the book of the Torah has 2 rolls, like binders for scrolling. This is just a Megillah, like the book of Esther or Ruth. It's a 1 scroll, right? And so he said to me, what do you see? And so I answered, I see a flying scroll. Its length is 20 cubits and its width 10 cubits.
Wow.
So when you read this, like I have, you think, okay, it's a flying piece of paper. Like it's already outstretched. It's 10, 20 by 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to consider all the options because the more you look into it, the more it doesn't make sense when you understand it's just like a rectangle, like a flying carpet, like Aladdin or something like that.
Wow.
What we're looking at is a missile. It's an ICBM. When it says that the width, the word in Hebrew there is breadth. It's not actually talking about how wide it is. It's talking about the circumference. When you look at it like this with me, what this allows us to do is it allows us to using 18 inches per cubit times 10 cubits. That's where I get my number for 15 feet. Okay, 18 inches per cubit. That's about the standard cubit back that Zechariah would be familiar and would be using. 18 inch from the tip of your middle finger to the hollow of your elbow.
Right.
So 18 inches times 10, you get 15 feet. That gives us, we can convert that to meters. And there's a reason why we're doing meters because that's how military technology is measured.
Right.
You use D equals pi times diameter, C pi D. You get the diameter, which is actually going to be 1.45 meters. Well, guess what? That actually matches the Khorramshahr. When we look at this, the length is 13 meters. The diameter is 1.5 meters.
Wow.
Of the Khorramshahr.
That is spot on.
And I haven't even talked about these things. I've been wanting to cover this on Overcome Babylon, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it here for the first time.
Yeah, thank you.
When I saw this on Telegram, I was like, guys, my jaw is hitting the floor. This is perfect. The circumference is perfect. You round it up, right? 0.45. You round it up to 5. The length, it's not exactly perfect. I'll show you the length here. We're looking at a length of 9.14 meters for the exact, if we're keeping the same cubit, 18 inches for 1 cubit. The one that Zechariah is showing us here, it's a little bit shorter.
Okay.
But still, the diameter is what matters. Clearly, they have different variations, iterations of these things in different silos, but you see how close we are. The tech is there in that region. I'm going to show you where the region is here, how Zechariah describes it.
Yeah.
Then, so the angelic messenger said to Zechariah, right? Then he said to me, Zechariah, this is the curse that goes out over the face of the whole earth. Now, do you guys see why I said thermonuclear war in the next 20 days, or we have to wait 6 months?
Yeah.
Because it's not just the Middle East. It starts there. That's where the Great Tribulation begins, but then it spreads. This is the curse that goes over the face of the whole earth. Every thief shall be expelled. According to this side of the scroll, every perjurer shall be expelled according to that side of it. So when we're talking about, again, we're talking about lawlessness, right?
Yep.
Thief. So unjust gain, the whole world's economic system is built on unjust gain because the Bible forbids the collection of interest for brethren of a nation. Yeah. So the way I always explain this, Jeff, is it's talking about interest fueled fiat money. So you better watch out for economic centers. If you live in a major city, I'm just going to mouth off a few. New York City, obviously. New York City, obviously. Los Angeles, obviously. Denver, which is like the second capital of the United States in the event of a COG, continuity of government situation. Obviously, places like Colorado Springs, obviously, fill in the blank. There are economic centers like Houston that are of strategic importance for the United States. So that's where you fill in the definition. Okay, it's going to go over the whole earth, but it's telling you places where economic important activities have been taking place to enable a system, an economic system of theft, bribery, extortion. You guys are seeing it now with the Epstein files. Now you're seeing how this all fits.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing it, right? It's always been in the shadows. It's always been hidden and quiet.
Wow.
And so,
go ahead. I'm going to say we're also seeing the blinders taken off that when Obama was in office, he made a statement that really riled a lot of people up. He said, "We are no longer a Christian nation," or something that, and a lot of people got mad at that. But guys, we're not. Look. Go up to Dearborn, Michigan. Look, I don't know if you saw Alan McGuire messaged me this morning and sent me a picture that was taken today out of New York City, where Muslims were just gathered all in the streets with their prayer rugs. Okay, well, Jeff, it's not all Muslims. You're right. Most Americans participated in a satanic ritual over a football game here just a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
There is so much going on. I know. I was told years ago when I was trying to tell people about Pizzagate about how crazy I was.
Oh yeah, dude, you knew about that too. Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah, and we are being judged. We are part of the harlotry. Now, I believe about it just the same ways I do about the nation state of Israel today. I do believe there's believers over there. I believe there's believers here. I believe there's believers in Russia. I believe there's believers in China. The Bible says there would be a remnant all over the world. And I believe that. But that doesn't mean that these nations are doing godly things and we worship. Look, I'm excited about some of the things that Trump does, but I got super nervous in between when he was out of office and they had a CPAC and they had a golden statue of Donald Trump that the Republicans were coming into the convention and kissing. You remember that? I don't know if you know.
No,
that.
I don't
That's
actually.
A true story. Yeah. That's a true story. Had a gold image of Trump, and when they were coming into CPAC, they would kiss it. It's crazy, man. But we're a Christian nation.
Yeah, I mean, a very perverted, degenerate, idol version of Christianity, sure. And that actually was one of the chief sins of Sodom and Gomorrah, was that they were idle. They had fullness of bread. Yeah. And because they had so much time on their hands, they just engaged in immorality.
Yep.
And that is where so many Western countries find themselves, especially the United States, being the king of social media, right? Everybody's just
Yeah.
over consuming and just and participating in just endless debauchery online.
Mm.
But yeah, man, when you look at this, you look at the thief part of it, you look at the perjurer, so liars, those who swear falsely in the name of God. I mean, there's so many ways to look at the things, the thief and the perjurer. But where are the
Mm.
missiles going to strike?
Wow.
Where did they strike Sodom and Gomorrah? Right? I'm speaking
Yeah.
metaphorically, figuratively. Where did God's wrath strike? Why did it strike Sodom and Gomorrah? Because it was a
Yeah.
place of idleness.
Yeah.
And they also were very wicked in his sight. And that is where we are right now in so many of these economic centers, major cities, metropolitans of the United States, for instance, right? That's where we live. So that's where I'm contextualizing some of these
Sure.
things. But he says, I will send out the curse, says the Lord of
Mm.
hosts. It shall enter the house of the thief and the house of the one who swears falsely by my name. And
Oh.
here's how we know it's nuclear, guys. It shall remain in the midst of his house and consume it with the timber and the stones. So not only is it going to, of course, incinerate dimensional lumber, but what's very interesting, if you look at Gaza, for instance, the devastation, the
Yeah.
stones are still there. The stone is still intact. So what would remain in the midst and consume a stone foundation? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because that was conventional bombings, a lot of conventional bombings and destruction.
Yeah.
But if you get into I'm from Texas, so we'd say nuclear. But anyway, that's a Bushism. But yeah, it melts. It's gone. Interesting when they did. When I was studying for some of my book on with ancient history and things, I found that we have evidence of nuclear blast in the Indian desert. Ancient evidence. There's a certain type of glass that's only made at the explosion of a nuclear device on sand.
Wow.
And we had that evidence back then. And I'm just thinking that we just got to this technology again. I think it's watcher technology. It's forbidden technology. We shouldn't even have this.
Well, and that segues perfectly into what it says next. He sees an ephah. It's about a 40-liter container.
Mm.
It says basket. Okay, I don't like the New King James here. That's what I'm using. Ephah is the correct Hebrew word. I'm sure it'll say ephah. And so that's a 20 to 40-liter container. So there's a shift. It is actually appropriate for this man-made title to be here. First, we're looking at the scroll. Now we're looking at the payload. When you look at the payload, it's actually an ephah 40-liter container. It talks about a lead disc. It actually is a lead talent, a talent of lead. Lead is the only word that he could have used, Zechariah could have used to talk about uranium.
Right.
Because lead is the stable byproduct of the radioactive isotopes of uranium or plutonium. So lead is the decay product. So lead is what he saw that the ephah is made of. It needs a detonator, and then it turns into fire. The reason it uses the word woman is because the Masoretes didn't understand how to preserve this with the vowels. If you just change the vowels from A to E, Ishe, from Isha to Ishe, Ishe is a fire offering. So in his vernacular, the only way that Zechariah could have actually described this is to just say fire offering. Like that's the only way he could use Hebrew vernacular from the Torah to describe this.
Guys, take a screenshot of this. Zechariah 5:7. The lead is talking about the plutonium, the uranium, whatever they're using for the bomb. Man,
Ishe,
that is.
It should say Ishe, not Isha. It's using the incorrect vowel right there. And that's all it is. Because the vowels are man-made, but the actual marks are not. Like the actual Hebrew letters are not man-made.
Yeah, consonants are there, but the pointers were added later, supposedly to preserve things. We had Dr. Al Garza on, and he made a brilliant case in Psalms talking about where it says, David says to my Lord, and they like to say, oh, that's Adon or Adoni. No, he's actually found contextual proof and older manuscripts that it was actually Adonai. So it's literally talking about Jehovah says to Adonai. Interesting stuff. So anyway, but
I love that, man. That's cool.
But anyway, just Masoretes playing around with dots. There we go.
Yeah. So basically, the vowel pointers, guys, were added in the Middle Ages, which is fine. They did it to make it easier to read, but because of that mistake, it's a generational mistake. It shouldn't say woman; it should say fire offering.
Wow.
So wherever you see woman here, replace it with fire offering. We're told that the fire offering is wickedness, obviously, because nuclear weapons are an abomination. They're going to cause mass destruction, weapons of mass destruction, desolation. And so that kind of describes the ephod. Then there's a shift in the narrative here, Jeff. You talked about this earlier. You pointed at it, and you're like, I wonder if Pakistan, Russia, like somebody maybe even gave Iran a nuke.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's telling you right here. It's trying to tell you something about where the ephod came from, where it landed, where it's going.
Yeah.
So Zechariah 5:9 says, he says, I raised my eyes and looked, and there were 2 fire offerings coming with the wind in their wings, for they had wings like the wings of a stork, and they lifted the ephod, the warhead, nuclear warhead, between earth and heaven.
Yep. There we go.
Let me set this up. So 2 women. What does that mean? Why would there be 2 women? Oh, it makes sense. Stork, that's a heavy cargo plane. When you compare the stork to other birds, the stork is particularly larger than, whatever, a chicken, whatever he could have used in the vernacular.
Yeah.
So a stork is that would be, because of the size comparison between different birds, that would be like a heavy cargo plane compared to a fighter jet. Okay. It's not talking about a dove. It used stork.
Right.
So there's 2 jet engines, fire offerings of the jet engines on a heavy cargo plane that lifted up the ephod, nuclear warhead, off of the earth. It was in between heaven and earth, right? It's being transported. And he's saying, where is this cargo plane, right? I'm translating this for you guys. Big time,
yeah.
I said to the angel who talked with me, where is the cargo plane carrying the basket, the ephod, the warhead?
Goodness.
And he said to me, to build a house for it in the land of Shinar. When it is ready, the basket will be set there on its base. And actually, when you look at different translations like Spanish or whatever, it loses the meaning. Base is perfect for what is being described here, because it is in fact a deep underground military installation, a deep underground, a base, military base.
And Shinar is that's Iran, guys. Come on.
So the reason we know it's Iran, Jeff, actually comes from the book of Daniel.
Yeah.
The reason we know it's Iran is because of the book of Daniel. When you go, it talks about, I was in the citadel of Shushan. Yeah. You connect some pieces there. When Babylon took over the region, and they took the captives of Judah, Daniel was obviously there. Part of the Babylonian territory, which generally, when you think of Shinar, you think of Babylon alone. The reason we include the western part of Iran into the territory of Shinar is because the book of Daniel actually allows us to. It tells us that Babylon's territory stretched into the westernmost part of what would be considered Elam.
And that's during the time that Zechariah is writing this.
You took the words right out of my mouth, man. You can't make this stuff up. Let me show you a map, actually. That's it. So you have both of them on a map. You have the dark gray, that's Iran. You have Elam right there in the west, and you have Shinar. When Babylon owned that territory there, they went all the way to Shushan, the citadel where Daniel got some of his prophecies.
Yep.
It was considered Shinar at the time. Wow. So that actually is the western part of the region there of modern day Iran.
Wow. Dude, I love it.
It gets crazier. Yeah. It gets even better.
I had done some study into that. So when you were popping that out and you're talking about this bomb being based, and I was reading it, I'm like, holy cow, that's Iran, and most people won't know that. Most people will not. Iraq. Wow. Yeah, they're going to think it's Iraq, but that doesn't make any sense. Iraq had suffered a lot because of the American occupation. They were actually demilitarized. They don't even have an air force. Iran is a different beast, though. Iran has been independent. They overthrew Western-backed elements of their government during the Ayatollah, the Iranian Revolution in 1979.
they're very much independent. They've been sanctioned to death, and even in the spite of sanctions, they've managed through their oil and trade with Russia and China. They still managed to come up with some of the best military technology, to have deep underground military missile cities. I mean, we're talking about kilometers and kilometers outstretched throughout the mountains of missile cities, and there's nothing that the United States and Israel can do about it. In fact, the only option that they have, the US has, that's viable, is to use nuclear bunker buster bombs. There's a specific model of nuclear bunker busters, but we only have like a handful of them
Right.
at our disposal right now. They're expensive to produce, obviously, but once you start using nuclear weapons, then it's an open game for the nuclear exchanges to begin.
And we don't have enough of the missiles to counteract nuclear devices if they're fired over here. And that's another thing, another myth that the United States people think, oh well, if they start shooting nukes at us, we got enough things to knock them down. We don't, and that's terrifying.
So what's also what we have to kind of factor into this whole equation is the United States is extremely vulnerable right now. If what we're seeing in Ezekiel 22 happens and all of our aircraft carriers, bases, personnel, cargo planes, fighter jets, everything in the region is destroyed, melted with fire, like Ezekiel 22 says, we are so vulnerable, Jeff. Like, our anti-missile defense systems in the United States are outdated. It's old technology. We don't stand a chance against what happens after we're defeated militarily by Iran. We're not ready for what happens after that.
I think that's why I think Trump has been trying to play a Ronald Reagan thing. When Ronald Reagan was talking about the Star Wars system, not the movie.
The laser thing.
The laser thing. It was all made up. They didn't have it. It was propaganda to convince the Soviet Union to spend money so they can try to create something like this. And he broke their backs doing it. But I think Trump has been doing the same thing here lately, talking about we have time weapons and we can go back and rewrite, just all kinds of stuff. I think he's trying to bluff China, bluff Russia into saying, into maybe holding back if some of this stuff comes to pass.
Yeah, Jeff. And what I'll say is this: when we look at Shinar and the EFA, the nuclear warhead being set there in its base, this has already happened. Because it's not an isolated prophecy in the timeline of the Bible. Yeah. It would take a lot of setup for me to explain properly, but it's September 22nd, 2023. This is when this took place. The reason I came to such a firm date for that is because of Daniel. Only because of Daniel. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. Okay. It wasn't a dream.
You're saying they already have this.
They've had it for about 2 years now. Yeah.
Wow.
Over 2 years now.
What? Okay. So I'm gonna ask you just brother to brother. No one else is watching us right now. This is just offline. Why didn't they use it back when couple months ago when they launched all that stuff in Israel? Why do you think they didn't launch it then?
God's sovereignty, number one.
Okay.
Number two, they actually want to deter. Deterrence was the whole point of the Iranian response to the 12-day war and everything. Deterrence has been, so Iranian has not been an offensive country. They've just defended and they're trying to deter, but there's going to be a breaking point when the deterrence, I mean, there's no other option left for them but to go ahead and deploy everything they have. Yeah. And just from some of the military chatter that I saw, they didn't even use their best hypersonics and everything, like the Fatah 2 they just unveiled in 2023.
Yeah.
They didn't use some of the most advanced missiles that they have in the 12-day war. They kind of were just going through some old stockpile. So we potentially don't even know what the Iranians have, but even then they still hit like 32 or 36 different strikes on Israel's, mostly Tel Aviv, Mossad headquarters, and so forth. They were still successful. But I think, Jeff, I think the answer is deterrence. I think they realize what this means when this regional war breaks out. I don't think they want that. I mean, that's how I see it.
Yeah. Wow. I just look, I know people are going to be asking that. But you're saying they have had this, not that they created it themselves, because this says nope, they haven't done it. It was flown over to them, given to them, and then they set this thing up. Man, that is interesting.
Now, when you go to Daniel 11, it tells you, in my opinion, who gave it to him. Okay. When you go to Daniel chapter 11, it is actually the king of the north, which I interpret to be Russia. So I believe it was Vladimir Putin.
Wow.
That supplied the weapon back in 2023. It was Vladimir Putin.
Wow.
Yeah. No. And trust me, Jeff, like when this stuff all happens, it's all said and done, people are going to look back on what we're talking about and be like, I think there's something to that. Right now, it seems very speculative, especially if you haven't done the homework for yourself. It seems very speculative.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the Bible's it gives us so many specific details because it actually, God wants his people to have a very advanced understanding of the time so we can prepare, so we can get ready for it.
So what we need you guys to do is download this program into your cell phone, put it in a Faraday cage, and then after the bombs hit, go around and tell everybody, say, look, Abraham, you're right on, buddy. Yeah. This is sobering is what this is, Abraham. This is to a point of being chilled.
I know. Especially with the Khorramshahr 4 just being unveiled.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And just to show you, I did this. These are all my illustrations from my book, Bible Prophecy Secrets. When you compare all of the heights and diameters of all the missiles that Iran has, this is all their inventory from the Fatah 110 to the Emad, the Sajil. You look at the Khorramshahr, and that diameter, that big one in the middle-ish, the middle-ish one.
Wow.
That diameter is what Zechariah is describing. It's very fat, which means it's going to be using a lot of fuel to get somewhere very quickly. And now we know it reaches Israel in about 8 minutes. And it just needs to be a little bit shorter, but they have the diameter and they have the capability, obviously. And just to show you guys another little view of that, this was from War Pulse just a few days ago. Iranian media reports warn that if the U.S. and Israel attack Iran, Tehran could retaliate by launching up to 500 Khorramshahr 4 ballistic missiles towards Israel. Wow. The missile is capable of carrying a 15. We already talked about this, but it could reach Israel in 8 minutes. But the thing is, 500 of them. You can't defend against that when, your Patriot missile defense systems, your David Sling, the Iron Dome, all of that is not only very expensive, but this actually is going to overwhelm it. It's going to overwhelm it. There's not enough There's not enough anti-missile defense that could stop 500 at one time. It's not possible.
Can you go back to the size comparison of those missiles? Because I want to bring up another point with that. When the Iron Dome is activated, it definitely, they get a lot of them. They got the majority. I'll just say they got the majority. Even if you get the majority, do you see the size of this missile? Okay, yeah, you knocked it out, but what kind of damage is still going to be raining down from debris?
That's a good point.
Knock that out. Let's say you get 80 or 90% of them. Still, the 10 to 20% that gets through is going to be rough. But then the 80% that didn't get through, that's going to be a lot of massive debris falling down, raining down. Oh man, that's tough.
Yeah, Jeff. Yeah, and you reminded me of something. So like last summer in 2025, one of the reasons why the U.S. giving Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine was seen as such an escalatory, hostile move by the Russian armed forces and Putin is because when you're giving the Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, those can be nuclear capable.
Yeah.
And when you shoot them out of the sky with your missile defense system, I mean, is one of them going to initiate a mushroom cloud in a random place? You don't even know anymore.
And
so
if they did,
huge.
If they did, bam, you got EMP right there. Knocks out the rest of your missile defense. We got a question there. Abraham, do you know how many warheads are available to be stuck on the top on that thing?
So from my
I don't.
understanding, yeah, from my understanding, it's not like the Russian technology, like the Satan 2 that has 15 multiple reentry vehicles. Um, it's just one warhead. I don't
Just
think
one.
it's going to split off, with little engines into other warhead, bombs. But it could. I mean, I don't know. I just haven't seen that. It
Wow.
hasn't come across my radar. But Russia definitely has that.
Wow.
The multiple reentry vehicle technology on the tip of the warhead.
Man. Hmm.
Yeah, see, I'm looking at a Wikipedia article. It actually says the same thing I just said. It's unclear whether it can carry multiple
Okay.
warheads.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to verify that real quick. Good question. That's a great question.
Abraham, how should we as believers, and I know you may still have other things to talk about, but I really feel this from the Spirit right now. How should we as believers be praying for our brothers and sisters, maybe our children that may be in the military? Um, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so as far as prayer, we definitely the reason why God is allowing these things to manifest according to the written word of prophecy.
Yeah,
And remember, prophecy never came about by the will of men, but holy men of God spoke as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. That's why this is so
yeah.
on point, so specific, so exact, perfect,
Mm,
is because it's God orchestrating all this. And the reason he's doing it is ultimately because he wants people to repent. He wants people to wake up. If the status quo continued in
yeah.
perpetuity the way it is, right? People would still continue to just have their Super Bowl, Sunday, just like you're talking about the Super Bowl ceremonies, and
Mhm.
life would just continue indefinitely, and no one would ever stop to ask the hard questions in life. So I really think, how they say there's no atheists in foxholes. It's really because people are going to start having to ask the hard questions. Maybe there
Yeah.
is a God. Maybe there's more to life. Maybe
Mm,
this can't all be a mistake. Something feels off about all this. And the
yeah.
last time we experienced this was COVID, 2020. And how many people woke up? I was awakened because of COVID-19. I
Wow.
was.
Wow.
I wouldn't be doing Overcome Babylon, overcomebabylon.com, everything that I do if it were not for the events of 2020. It
Right.
it made me realize how fragile our world is. I know you probably feel the same way, right, Jeff?
It my heart for people all over the earth right now, because again, the scriptures that you're bringing out, it says everywhere.
Correct. Yep.
People romanticize the apocalypse. They romanticize doomsday prepping, and YouTube is filled with tons of AI stories right now about how I survived the apocalypse or a zombie thing or whatever, the military campaigns and all this stuff. And people romanticize it, but look, it's something completely different if these things strike and suddenly there's no power. Suddenly entire massive cities are just obliterated and melted, gone. And there's no food, there's no medicines, I mean, it's we need to be praying for the Spirit of God to continue to soften the hearts of men, take the blinders off of people's eyes, take the wax out of people's ears so that they can hear and they can see the Word of God. Pray for your relatives, pray for your family, pray for your friends, pray for your enemies. Look, I don't want to see anybody have to go through what we're looking at. Now, look, it's going to happen one way or the other. You know, uh, Abraham, maybe you've got 95% of it right and there's 5% wrong, or maybe you're 60% right and 30%. It doesn't matter. This stuff is coming to pass, and we're at a precipice right now where we're seeing, unlike any time I believe in history, with the technology, with the alignments of nations, the state of economies, the mindset of people, look, if this had happened back in the 40s and 50s, I don't think we wouldn't see. Was there occult worship back then? Absolutely, but it wasn't like what we have today. And you have people praying and praying for, I don't want to get into all that, but I don't think we would see exactly what we're seeing today, if it wasn't the timing of it. And I am urging people, look, if you feel led to fast, if you feel led to pray, if you feel led to call some of your friends together, say, hey, let's fast, let's come together and intercede. Look, be sensitive to the Holy Spirit. If Yah begins to tell you to store up something or to go somewhere or whatever, you need to be listening to the Spirit of God and being quick to do it.
Yeah, 100%, Jeff, 100%. And, to add to that, the last time we had an event that caused a mass awakening, was 2020. The problem this time is that it's an awakening that people won't, as bad as COVID was, most people survive that. The problem with this one is people are not going to survive this. They're going to be awake, but it's going to be too late.
Yeah.
And so I think, for our family, friends, people that we care about that are unsaved, people that are just complacent in their walk with Christ, they're not even like really serious about God. They're not excited about Christ. We need to pray that they become aware to what the world is, what's happening in the world, how things are leading towards this irreversible path of thermonuclear war of the, World War III, all the nations going at it, a time of chaos.
Yeah.
We just need to pray that they're not deceived. A lot of people, I've gotten this many times, Jeff, they'll go to Jeremiah chapter 49 and they'll say, you're wrong about Isaiah 22. You're wrong about Ezekiel 22. You're wrong about Zechariah 5. You're wrong about the way you look at Daniel and all these things, because God says in Jeremiah chapter 49 that he's going to break the bow of Elam. And it does say that. That is true. But the context is clearly after God has used them as his instrument of justice, because we have never seen the house of Israel melted by fire in Jerusalem, or the midst among.
That's such a powerful point. Can you, and I know, look, I'm not asking you to go over everything we just talked about, but can we bring that scripture back up, because that ties it in to me very solidly. When you recognize that's never happened.
Yeah,
that has never happened. I'll bring it back up. Here we go.
Yeah, in the midst in Jerusalem, I'm going to melt you. Like, this just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Another thing, Jeff, is the invincibility narrative of the state of Israel. Yeah. Because of Christian Zionism amongst evangelicals and its popularity and its mass adoption, just because it's the cultural thing to do. If you're a writer, if you're an author, you want to go along with that agenda because you're going to make more Amazon sales and book deals. You want to go along with the Christian Zionist agenda as much as you can because it's popular. You're going to fit in. You're going to get speaking arrangements. You're going to get all expenses paid travel, whether it's, to speak or to go to Israel or whatever. People sign on to Christian Zionism. The leadership does for their own selfish gain, and because it supports their biases. They don't really care about the truth, and because it's comfortable. But the invincibility narrative of the state of Israel was already shattered during Operation True Promise 1, 2, and 3 by Iran. They already shattered this idea that the Iron Dome is just this unstoppable force and nothing can penetrate it. The Houthis, the Yemen Houthis have dismantled that narrative already. And so what people will also do is they'll quote Psalm 83 and say there's a coalition of nations, but they're going to be defeated, because look at what Psalm 83 says. They're going to be blessed and protected. Nothing's ever going to harm the apple of God's eye and all these types of things. But places like Psalm 83 that people like to take out of context, that is a historical event that happened in David's lifetime. That's why he's writing about that particular chapter of Psalms. And we don't have to go through all these things, but I just encourage everybody listening, hey, look at the Bible for what it actually says, not what popular, basically bought and paid for authors, speakers,
Yeah.
Pastors and all these people have been pushing as part of a greater agenda to prop up this invincibility narrative because it's part of a bigger propaganda play. And it's part of basically a mass psychosis. It's part of a psyop, is what it is. You have
Yeah.
to look at you have to understand the Bible has been weaponized by the devil. He knows exactly how to quote it out of context. He did it to Christ during the temptation in Matthew chapter 4, 40 days in the wilderness. He knows exactly how to twist, and he's done it. Most of our brothers and sisters are 100% deceived, and they're only going to wake up to the truth about what the state of Israel was, who the real Israel is, after we see what is about to happen with Iran, the United States, and Israel attacking
So
each other.
I'd like to just talk about this just for a little bit, because we do probably have a lot of different people that watch you, and some of them, they may not really understand what we're even talking about with Christian Zionism. Now, we definitely believe that God at one point in history is going to bring Israel back. We believe God's going to save all of Israel at one point. What I think what we're talking about here is the difference between Isaac and Ishmael, where we have Abraham was given a promise, and he hadn't received the promise of Isaac yet. And Sarah says, "Hey, I got this concubine over here, or this handmaid. Why don't you take her as a concubine, and let's force this prophecy into being?" And the result was Ishmael. So Abraham took Sarah's handmaiden Hagar. They got together. They had Ishmael. And immediately Sarah was kind of ticked off, but it was Abraham's like, "Oy vey, it was your idea," anyway. But later, God did fulfill his actual promise on his time frame when Sarah conceived and had Isaac. And I think that's kind of to me, that's the best way to really describe the difference in what we're talking about when we say that we're not, because some people take it, wow, Abraham, you're just against these people that are over in Israel. No, we're against people trying to force this prophecy onto these people. Is that a better way to, is that a good way to say that?
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. And it's really a unique position to Western evangelicalism. When you look at Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox Catholics, the majority of Christendom worldwide does not adhere to the two most cherished doctrines of evangelical American Christianity, which are the pre-tribulational rapture and Christian Zionism.
Yeah.
The idea that you must bless the government of Israel and the entire entity at all costs, or you're going to be cursed.
Yeah.
This is unique to American evangelicalism and whoever American evangelicalism has influenced. So there are going to be Latin American branches and offshoots of it, wherever evangelical Protestantism exists. But most of Christendom worldwide rejects these cherished eschatological end times positions of American churches. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I was caught up in it as a pastor, growing up, listened to late great Planet Earth, Hal Lindsey. Grew up in Texas, in charismatic circles, listened to John Hagee, talking about some of these things. And look, it's not that we don't look forward to God bringing people in. And God, look, I'm excited that the Jewish people have been gathering. I'm excited about that, but I don't think that's Israel. And the scriptures talk about when they're gathered, it's going to be it's going to be a blessing. Look, Tel Aviv is one of the most wicked cities upon the face of the earth right now. It is.
That's a fact.
Yeah. And up until just recently, it was the capital of Israel. Tel Aviv was. So again, I wanted to point that out because I know some people have a hard time when you even begin to talk negatively about Israel, because they have a lot of issues, just because of how they've been raised, or maybe they have a love for their Jewish brothers. We do, man. I pray that I'm just like Paul. If I could give my life for them to see them saved, I would, you know. So it's not for hatred there. I pray that the scales come off their eyes. I pray that they come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua HaMashiach. I pray for them. Look, I actually listen to some. There's a gentleman named Nehemiah Gordon I love to listen to. I have learned so much history from him, and I pray that I pray one day that he will come into that knowledge. And but I'll tell you what, he's got a lot of fruit of the Spirit that I see, than more sometimes than some of my Torah terrorist brothers. So anyway, but, at the end of the day, you can have all knowledge, you can do all kinds of things. If you have not love, you don't have anything. This is sobering, Abraham. This is so sobering. We need to. What should we be telling other people? Okay, we've talked about spiritual. We need to be praying. We need to be doing these things. What are some other? Because I'm a practical guy. Look, I love to talk theology. I love to talk eschatology. I love to talk all this stuff. But what are some practical things that we can do as a believer right now? Not only pray. We've talked about the spiritual side, which is I think the most important. I'd rather see my relative or my friend. I'd rather see them come into covenant than see them struggle by and get through the tribulation and end up not being in covenant. So that's the first thing. But what are some secondary things that we can be doing right now?
Yeah, I definitely, this conversation would be incomplete. It would not be complete without addressing this topic of survival, preparedness, and situational awareness.
Yeah.
Every time I talk about this, Jeff, because of my logo with the pyramid, the all-seeing eye being stabbed by the sword of truth, there's blood squirting out.
Yeah.
I attract a lot of conspiracy theorists. It's just the name in the game.
Sure.
And every single time I talk about what I just showed you from the scriptures, very plain as day, there's always people in the chat. I've seen it here. Nuclear weapons are fake. It's a conspiracy theory that's been unraveled. There's this physicist from like the 60s and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I've heard all that stuff, guys. You don't think I've studied that, right? I just want to address it real quick.
Okay.
Nuclear power is real. You had the Fukushima meltdown, and look what it did to the environment. Look what it did to the surrounding regions. So to think that this whole idea of nuclear technology just is fake, like this big multi-governmental conspiracy theory, it really it's something I just want to touch on real quick. It's better to prepare, even if you think nukes are fake, which I think you're crazy if you think they're fake. It means you just haven't really done the homework, met some military people, and maybe asked just a few simple questions. But you should definitely get ready for it, okay? It should be in the back of your mind. Even if you look at Zechariah's prophecy and it's not nukes, that's just conventional missiles all over the face of the earth. Well, guess what? Even if it's conventional weapons, which is regular old explosives, TNT, whatever they're using, right? You're still going to have supply chain disruptions, economic problems basically overnight, overwhelmed military and police, civil unrest, grocery store raids. You thought the toilet paper during COVID was bad? I mean, we're talking about not just toilet paper. Everything's going to get absolutely raided. You're going to have door-to-door theft, okay? You're going to have carjackings, stabbings. People are going to be fighting over basic resources in the event of a worldwide war where there's missiles being flown around. Now, because nukes are real, it's been authenticated all over the media and different things that we have. In fact, Israel even used a low-grade nuke. There's evidence of this because of the earthquake that was caused against Hezbollah in Lebanon. That happened. That there's evidence of that happened in 2025 when or whenever it was, they took out Nasrallah. Yeah, whenever it was that happened with the bunker buster. Low-grade nukes have already been used on the battlefield, including recently. It looked like there was one deployed either by the Russian or Ukrainian side. I forget which one did it. The sky turned like a crimson, purplish pink. And be like, oh, that looks like a low-grade nuke. Yeah, so they're already kind of, putting it out there. Hey, we're starting to get comfortable with the idea of using more heavier artillery. And so what we need to do is get ready for the inevitable, which is a Satan 2 with 15 nukes on the tip of the warhead hitting Houston, hitting Denver, hitting major cities. Just be prepared. And if it doesn't happen, cool. You know, you can call me whatever names you want. But guess what? If I'm right, we won't even be having a conversation about it. One of us is not going to be alive much longer. Now, the reason I think I have a good survivability probability is because, first of all, I put my faith and trust in the Yeshua the Messiah, Christ, number one. First step, right? But over the past 8 years, I'm longer than that. I'm losing track of time. I left the city in 2018. I left Denver and I lived in an RV. And I'll just reverse engineer some of my thought processes and everything that I did. I left Denver in 2018. Didn't have a job lined up, didn't have a whole lot of money, but I did have a piece of land and I did have some savings. Didn't have cash flow income stream, but I did have enough savings. I built a house from the ground up with my wife. We lived in an RV. We dry camped. That means you don't have running water. That means you're pooping in buckets because it's too cold. The water lines would freeze at 9,000 feet elevation. Why did I do all this? Back then, I knew about prophecy, but not the way I do now. Back then, I did it because I wanted to survive skyrocketing housing prices, inflation, and the Federal Reserve monetary policies that are designed to enslave the middle class.
Right.
Okay. I wanted to escape all of that back then, and I wanted to be free as I can. If you're paying taxes, you're not free. Okay. But as free as we can be under the current paradigm. So in 2018, I left Denver and I dry camped and I built a house from the ground up, foundation up. And I've reverse engineered all that. So the first thing I would say for anyone who's in the city, because I was in Denver, right? Get out of the city. Okay, that's general advice, not a prescription. Pray about it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
you're not saying thus saith the Lord, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Saying, yeah.
So you need to become bug out ready. That's the number one thing I would advise everybody. Become bug out ready. What that means is have a plan, an evacuation plan. Have a bug out bag. A bug out bag, you're going to want to have a survival knife. I have mine right here, actually. This is a 119 buck knife. Okay, what's the difference between a buck knife like this and see? Look at the way the blade is designed. This is not good for batoning. What's batoning? Well, that's for splitting wood. You need to learn some of the terms of vernacular that are used in the art of bushcrafting. Because let me tell you something. Someone who is really free is someone who can live anywhere at any time under any circumstances, weather-wise, and keep their core body temperature warm or cool. That person is the freest person on earth. Become bug out ready. Learn survival skills. Learn bushcrafting, okay? In fact, I have a box set of bushcrafting books right here that I'm digging into like crazy. And so having a bug out bag, you're going to want to have the clothing. You want to know how to use rope and cordage. You want to have cooking, the ability to cook, the ability to purify water through cooking, making fires, fire starting. Study the art of fire starting with magnesium, ferrous rods. Bic lighters don't really work that well in the cold. I don't know if you know that, right? Yeah. Bic lighters do not work well in the cold. They need to actually be at least above 32 degrees or that Bic lighter won't light. So use magnesium, use a ferrous rod. Have different options for fire starting. Fire starting is like the most primitive of man's survival skills and one of the most important. The other one is making rope. The other one is using and making knots and lashings and putting together survival shelters, right? These are the types of things everybody needs to be talking about and thinking about as we approach a deindustrialization event. We're approaching the deindustrialization of the world. Yeah.
Say that again. Say deindustrializing events. Say that again, because I don't think people really get what you mean by that.
We are entering a deindustrialization event, but most of the people out there, especially Christians in the West, they've been so conditioned by the Left Behind movies to think that satellite, TV, CNN, and all that's going to be broadcasting the Antichrist and broadcasting the return of Christ. And guys, get that all out of your head. Over 95% of the world's communication is through underground, subterranean fiber optic cables. Whether it's oceanic cables or terrestrial cables, most of the world's communication is through cables, subterranean. What does that mean if there's earthquakes? What does that mean if there are missiles, nuclear missiles, hitting all over these different cities and economic centers and severing communications? We are entering a comms blackout. We're entering a grid down scenario that is going to be long-term until occupation forces can come and establish their occupation. We'll see how that goes. I have my theories on occupation forces here in the United States. It'll definitely be an Islamic, Russian, Chinese coalition. We'll see how that all plays out, but we will be under occupation. It's just the way the prophecies are written. Slavery. These are the things that are coming to nations that shed blood, the way that the United States has shed blood with the military-industrial complex since forever now, it seems. And so you need to be thinking about, okay, survivability, bugging out, having a bug out plan, a bag. And already, I know it makes people nervous. Well, I'm on these medications. Well, I'm on, I need this drug. I need that comes through the supply chain. How am I going to get insulin? How am I going to do this? So the number one thing besides having gear, having stuff, right? A knife and fire starters and these types of things, tents, clothing, you need to actually be healthy. Research that, right? The Bible, the Torah gives us instructions for being healthy. Jeff and I were talking about this, right? Whole breads. What is Adam commanded to eat? The moment that the fall happens, you're going to eat bread by the sweat of your brow. Well, bread. I thought gluten is bad. I thought this and this. Well, maybe it's the glyphosate. Maybe it's the other things. Maybe we should actually be grinding our wheat berries, having a whole source of bread with no preservatives, no filler, no L-cysteine with pig hair, none of this type of stuff that they're putting in the bread that's defiling it.
Yeah.
Maybe we should be looking at how bread is actually made and do that, and then have some meat, have the things that the Torah says are good. Right. And we can have a holistic diet that actually heals our bodies from the inside out, making us bug out ready. See what I'm saying? So there's the health component, there's the bug out stuff, the survival, the knowledge. Most of it's knowledge based, being practiced. My wife and I we're starting to do this more, and we talked about it. The way the Marines they get their rucksacks, and they the way they do it in training is over a 12-week period. They start with 10 pounds and they work their way up to 60 pounds to carry a 60-pound bag through a long distance trek in the wilderness under an uneven terrain. Yeah. That's the type of stuff, guys. And even older, this is the new normal. This is where we're going.
Yeah. Let me tell you a story. My wife and I, we have a bug out. We have bug out bags. We have that. We've had that for years. And it was the funniest thing that when we first got together, we're like, we need bug outs, because we're all into it. And we go and buy these really cool packs. We're so excited. We're starting loading them up at night. And exactly what you're talking about, this weight issue with the bags. And we each make our lists. Man, we're ready. I mean, we're getting prepped, right? We make our list now. We start putting our stuff in. We're finding things, putting them in Ziploc bags, and we're putting dates on stuff, and we're getting batteries, and we're getting all this stuff. We got to put those packs on. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. I'm like, I'm making it a block, and I'm going to have to take a break. Come on. Yeah. You gotta think about it. You got to think about what are you going to be, what is important. If you had to leave your house right now, maybe you're living in the city, maybe you're somewhere that you definitely need to be able to get out. What would you take with you? You got 10 minutes. What are you doing? Think about that.
Yeah. And I was going to talk to you about this, Jeff. I totally forgot. I put together a resource for people. If you don't have any preps, or you feel inadequate, you feel like you're missing stuff, I do have a website for you. I just put it in the private chat. You guys can just click on that link. Yes, I'm an Amazon affiliate. Okay, this is something I've been wanting to launch to my community forever ago. It took me a year to put this book together. It took me forever because I'm very meticulous, and I wanted to make sure I'm giving people the absolute best information and everything. But if you guys want to go actually check out the gear that I recommend, whether it's knives, axes, there's only one axe I recommend in Amazon, because all this is like Amazon stuff, but this will give you kind of an idea of what to think about. Trust me, it'll help you. Even if you don't buy stuff from that link, whatever. I don't really care. It's about getting people kind of the idea, oh, maybe I should think about this type of an item. Maybe I should think about a Bible case, like a small Bible that actually has a camo case that's long, durable. It has a good canvas or whatever, because you want to have a Bible, guys. You want to keep your spiritual life alive even when you bug out. So
yeah. Gosh, that's a great idea. That's great.
Yeah, just a lot of different stuff. Yeah. So when you click on that orange button, it'll just take you to my Amazon page, and I have a whole bunch of just survival stuff that I've used. 95% of it is stuff that I have purchased. So
that's great. That's great.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say, Jeff, is become bug out ready. But here's an even better idea than being bug out ready, which we all should be. I think we should all. And in fact, I told you, I'm trying to be bug out ready.
Even if it's just because of a hurricane or because of a tornado or because of whatever, you need to be ready.
Yeah, but I'll say this, because of where statistically most of the people listening to us right now are living in a metropolitan area, close to a military base, close to a strategic nuclear target. Okay, that's going to be an economic center. That's going to be the federal center in Denver is a good example. Even if it's not a military base, some sort of communications center, something that's important strategically.
I grew up in the Karnak, Texas area. That's close to Shreveport, Louisiana, Barksdale Air Force Base. There we go. That's a target, guys.
Yeah, and especially like you have some of those Ohio class subs along the coast. You have different naval bases that are of strategic importance, anything that houses nuclear weapons. That is an automatic target. Anything with silos.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a lot of Montana, Wyoming. There's a lot of places there. So you want to go ahead and you want to think about relocating. Okay, this is called strategic relocation. You want to move away from primary, secondary, tertiary targets in nuclear war.
Yeah.
That is number one. Number two, population is your biggest threat. Even if you're not in an area that has a military base and this and that, look for a Walmart. If there's a Walmart in your area, that means that Walmart, what they do is they actually do statistical population maps, trends, and outlooks before they build a Walmart. And they say, okay, this is going to be a profitable location for us to build this thing because there's enough traffic. So if you are within 45 minutes to an hour of a Walmart, you're still technically in a place I would consider dangerous for population numbers. Okay. There's a reason why I live out west. The western part of the United States, yes, it's dry. It's a harsh climate. It's cold in some places, really cold in some places, but it doesn't have the population pressure, because the number one thing that's going to happen when the lights go down, everything happens, you're going to have people fighting for resources. This is just the way it is. Everybody's going to be fighting for the same resources. So rather than bugging out in a metropolitan area where you're setting yourself up for failure, it's doomed to fail. Don't bug out in a metropolitan area where everybody's reacting at the same time as you are going to be. Transition from a bug out plan only to a bug in plan. By bug in, I mean, hey, maybe think about what I told you. In 2018, I jumped in an RV, lived in that vehicle, and built my house from the ground up. I was working in construction, did odds and ends types of jobs, slapped together the money, and we kept building that thing little by little. When you stop paying rent, okay, whether you own the piece of land or whatever, when you stop paying a rent, whether it's an apartment, a duplex, whatever it is that you're renting from a landlord, or you're paying a mortgage, once you get out of that cycle, you're actually going to have a lot more money than you know what to do with. And you can now transition from a bug out plan to a bug in plan. So even if you're paying rent, especially if you're paying rent, I know if a mortgage is a little trickier. A mortgage, you have to put your house on the market. There's all these things. But if you're paying rent, especially, like, that's really nice, because you can just go ahead, live in a truck, live in a van, and the cops, depending on where you live, they're going to try to give you parking tickets. They're going to try to follow you and figure you out if you're predictable. So you're going to want to park in different parts of the city while you're working your job, saving up money, and then coming up with a good bug-in plan with a piece of land, pulling the permits, building, showing the county proof that you're building your house. All counties want proof of that over whether it's 45 days, 90 days. You want to show proof that you're making progress, and it's not that hard. Yes, it's tyrannical. Just show them you're making progress. I mean, on your building, show them, and they will stay off your back. Play by the rules. Do not. I've seen this 4 times with other people that want to build sheds, houses on their properties. They never pull permits. They don't do things according to the rules. They end up sued by the county. The county will hire lawyers, and they will kick you out, and you will be.
And they'll destroy it. They'll destroy that house.
Yes, they will condemn it, and they'll actually bulldoze it eventually. You do not want to end up wasting your time and wasting your money. So have a bug-in plan, a smart bug-in plan, not just this willy-nilly, like Vietnam vet that's kind of lost his mind type of bug-in plan where you're just doing whatever you want like it's the Wild West. We don't live in that type of society. You will have to face the consequences of breaking the law. So that's kind of all I have, Jeff. I know that was a lot. I tried to cram in some of the analysis. Bugging out, bugging in. Think about these things, guys. We still have a little bit more time. Okay, if nothing happens in about 25 days, You will have 6 months. What are you going to do with the next 6 months if we even have that? If Iran and Israel don't go to war, what are you going to do with the next 6 months? I think I've given you at least one or few strategies that you can implement. Living in a vehicle, hands down. I did it a couple of times in my life. It's hard, but it teaches you minimalism and living within your means very quickly. You're not going to have a whole lot of extra stuff weighing you down, and it's a blessing.
That's good, man. Well, Abraham, look, I thank you so much for taking time. It was very last minute, and I'm so grateful for you coming on and talking about this. We're going to have you back in a couple of weeks on a Wednesday night. Very excited about you coming back. We're going to have a good conversation then as well. But I'll let you get back to your family and everything. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. And any final word for our audience that's listening?
God bless you guys, man. Seriously, I mean that. I just pray that you just draw close to him and he draws close to you, and that you just experience the beauty of resting in him, in his promises, really experiencing that and walking in spiritual disciplines. Jeff you talked about this: prayer, fasting, Sabbath is a spiritual discipline. But one of the big ones I think we all need to incorporate into what we call spiritual disciplines is just as important as Bible study and prayer: preparedness, guys. It's that time we need to start preparing.
That's good. Amen.